This episode is sponsored by Kerkering Barberio, your trusted partner in tax, audit, and outsourced accounting services. Serving Sarasota, Manatee, and the greater Tampa Bay area for over 50 years, KB helps clients achieve their personal and business goals. Visit kbgrp.com to learn more. I've gotten to know Sharon Hillstrom over the past decade or so, watching her lead the Bradenton Area EDC. I've always been impressed about how she and her team have navigated a variety of challenges to help businesses grow and prosper. To read more about economic development and leaders like Sharon, subscribe to the Business Observer. Go to businessobserverfl.com to sign up. Hello, and welcome to the Business Observer's From the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Sharon Hillstrom, president and CEO of the Bradenton Area Economic Development Corporation. Sharon, welcome, and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Mark. It's my pleasure to be with you this afternoon.
Well, I am excited to get to know a little bit more about you and your career, and obviously all the amazing things going on at the EDC. I know we just talked briefly. We talk a lot, Sharon. You and I seem to run into each other constantly in town, but there is a lot happening in various parts of Manatee County. So before we get too deep into that, we're gonna start you off with some quick hit questions so our audience can get to, many people know who you are, I think, because of all the amazing things the EDC does and the events you guys put on. But we're going to get to know you even a little deeper. Are you ready for these rapid fire questions?
Ready.
Okay. How many unread emails do you have right now?
Too many.
Too many. So not two, the number two, but TOO many. All right.
Exclamation point. 200
Yes.
exclamation point.
Okay. Well, that's a challenge for you to go through them then. How many hours of, second question, how many hours of sleep do you need a night to not be cranky the next day?
Whoa, 6
6. You could fire
hours.
up on
Yep.
6.
If I can actually do that, 6 hours is good for me. 7 if I'm lucky.
7. Got it. All right. Last question. What are the most used apps on your phone? What are one or two of the most used apps on your phone?
Instagram and Spotify. Those two are probably, LinkedIn too.
Spotify. What kind of music are you listening to? Are you listening to music or podcasts? Obviously, you're listening to this podcast because you could get the From the Corner Office on Spotify, shameless plug. But what are some of the things you are listening to on Spotify?
So I listen to Smart List. I don't know if you're familiar. That's Jason Bateman.
Jason Bateman. Very good podcast. It's very funny.
Yeah. So that one's really fun. I just find it very entertaining. They have some interesting guests.
They do.
And then I listen to Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Wiser Than. I don't know if you're familiar with that, sure. But that's a great podcast too. And then I listen to just a variety of different music. I love music. I start my morning off. I tell my Sonos, play relaxing morning music.
Really?
And then, yes. And then I listen to music when I'm working. I ask for music with a work focus. And that just really helps me, tune out all the distractions that may be around. It's always worked for me. When I run, I listen to music. I find it just kind of warms my soul.
That's so interesting too. Again, because I think one of the great things about this forum is to get to know people. Like I said, there's so many people who know who you are and what the EDC does, but I think I've probably known you. I've known you for 15 years and I never knew that. So that's cool little nuggets there. Okay, we're gonna move on to a little bit about you and your career. Again, Bradenton EDC, but tell us a little bit about Sharon before that. Where'd you grow up and kind of how did you get into the career that you have now?
Sure. Well, I moved around a fair amount. I moved about 4 times growing up. Was born in Illinois, in Chicago Heights, Illinois, and then moved throughout the Midwest. I lived in Minnesota, so I had somewhat of a little Minnesota accent.
Yes.
So I lived in 2 places in Minnesota, in Moorhead, Minnesota, which is very cold, and then moved to Burnsville, Minnesota, then moved to Cedarburg, Wisconsin, then moved to Naperville, Illinois, which essentially, when people ask me where I'm from, I typically say Illinois because that's where I lived the longest.
Okay.
Graduated from Arizona State University and wanted to go someplace warm. My degree is actually in education. And when I started student teaching, I realized that wasn't really what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I had to transition there, moved back to Chicago, worked in the city, worked for a clothing manufacturer there as a sales assistant. Loved working in the city, absolutely loved it. And then I moved to Michigan. And my first, I would say, real job was I worked for Jacobson's. You remember Jacobson's,
Oh, sure.
department store based out of
Yeah.
Jackson, Michigan, but they also had stores in Florida.
They had a bunch of stores in
Nonetheless, I
Florida.
worked at one of their stores and I was the sales promotion manager. 23 years old. I was putting on their fashion shows, doing presentations, all that kind of stuff. I learned on the job. I really didn't know what I was doing, but I figured it out.
Yeah.
And then I worked for a film developing company called Fox Photo. So I was a sales rep for Fox Photo. That's when 24-hour film processing was a big deal and was considered to be cutting edge. And then took a break from the working world for a while, raised my kids. And then when my son went off to college, I decided I needed to put my resume together and see what was out there for me. And then I landed at the EDC.
Wow.
And I know. It's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
But it kind of tracks though with a sales background, sales and marketing background. So it tracks in terms of doing economic development. And this actually is the best job I've ever had.
Yeah. Well, there's so many young learning experiences I bet you had there. As you mentioned, 23, you're just trying to figure it out and then film. I wonder how much of our young audience has no idea what that is, a 24-hour
Right?
film, but they'll learn
Yeah.
on the internet.
Yeah. Well, what was cool about that job too, when I worked for the film developing company, was I was on the sales side, but I had to work with the folks in production. And typically sales and production, they don't communicate really well. And so I honed some skills even that early on in terms of communicating with people that were an entirely different division and understanding how to kind of work together and get things done. So got some great experience there, worked with all different kinds of people. So
Yeah.
I found it was really valuable.
Yeah. Wow. Sorry. So you have these experiences, you get here, and then there's the Bradenton EDC, which has evolved over the years. You guys have had a couple of sort of strategic plans over the years to get where you are now. Sharon, tell us about the mission of the EDC. You know, what's sort of the elevator pitch takeaway for what the Bradenton Area EDC does today?
So, Mark, we stay true to our mission in everything that we do. So our mission is all about diversifying the local economy, and we do that by attracting high wage jobs for area residents. And then we're also giving a lot of attention to those established businesses here and support them by providing access to resources for them to prosper. We've got three main areas of focus: business expansion, business attraction, and business retention. So those are our three main areas of focus, but we get involved, as you know, with a number of different things, whether it's workforce housing, whether it's entrepreneurship, whatever it happens to be, any kind of issues that could prevent us from being successful in achieving our mission. So we identify any of those things. We may not be leading them, but we may bring it to the forefront and hand it off to some other organization that could better address them. But we try to stay true to our mission in everything we do, because in my opinion, when a business or an organization strays from their mission, that's when you get mission creep. That's when there's a demise of the organization.
Yeah. And so to me, it's always fascinating what you and, Elizabeth, and I know some of your colleagues well over the years, you guys get to interact with all these interesting businesses, whether it's the really big employers, an IMG Academy, for example, or a lot of these 10, 15 employee companies that are humming, that you're helping. I'm curious what you've learned from these companies in your career. What stands out as lessons in sort of business strategy, business operations that make a good organization that you've seen in your career?
Right. And you're right. It's been an honor to work with so many companies here. I would say the ones that look to locate here, they've done their homework. They are very prepared for anything that comes their way. They have a plan. They implement the plan. They understand their value proposition, and they take calculated risks. The calculated risks are super important, but that's all going into doing your homework.
Yeah.
And then they understand the businesses, I think, that are really successful in the community also are great corporate citizens, right? They give back to the community, and people recognize that and want to support that. So relationships in that regard are super important.
Yeah, it's you think about that, right? Those are some of those key players, those companies that we hear all the time that are doing really well do both, like First Watch, for example, right? I know the
Yep.
EDC has partnered with First Watch on its headquarters and plenty
Yep.
of other things that I'm sure I don't even know about off the top of my head, but they're also out there in the community, right? They're being involved in
Absolutely.
things. I'm sure
I
there's
mean,
plenty of examples.
they're true to their mission, and they're engaged in the community because they realize that's important for the brand as well.
Yeah. What have you learned as a leader more internally to the EDC? What do you look for in other leaders, right? I think right now, how many employees you guys have? You're in that like 8 to
We
10?
are five. We are
5?
five.
Why did I think you were 8?
We are a small and mighty team, Mark.
Super lean 5. But it's still, I mean, so what are you looking for in leaders there? Because that's actually a good, I think a good way for you to sort of analyze the question, I guess, is everybody's got to be doing a couple of different things, right? When you have a group of 5 people. So what are you looking for as a leader in other leaders?
So, in terms of our organization, the culture here is super important. So the folks that fit into our culture in terms of being passionate about the work we do, being extremely collaborative, um, not just saying, this is my job description. I don't go outside of those lines. We are a very integrated, collaborative team. We do cross training. So if someone's out, someone else can step in. I'm all about everybody being on board
Yeah.
and wanting people to be on board. I'm looking for effective communicators. To me, that's so important. Words actually really do matter. And then, I think effective communication, super important. Being decisive in what you're going to do, like own your decisions,
Yeah.
and own your work, like own your area of focus. I think that's really, really important for an organization to take it to the next level. And
Yeah.
then as a leader, allowing that to happen, right? Allowing folks on your team to take ownership of what they do and let them spread their wings and take it to the next level.
Allowing them to own the decision, I think that's such an important lesson for leaders, right? It's not, I've learned as a leader, not, yes, you don't want to micromanage and you're not going to be do this, but it's let them own that decision. And sometimes I've learned you're not always going to agree with that decision, but
Right.
that's how they grow. That could be a challenge. How have you dealt with that in your career, allowing people that freedom and trust?
I have an open door policy, and
Yeah.
I'm encouraging everybody on our team to come with new ideas, fresh ideas, because I sure as heck don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
And I look for people I like it when people are creative and innovative. And I always say, come and share your ideas. I may not agree with you. I may think that there's areas that can be fine-tuned, but I hope that you feel comfortable coming to me and sharing whatever it is you think you can do to make what you're doing even better.
Yeah. It's excellent. In terms of being a leader over your career, who are some mentors that stand out in your career, and what are some leadership sort of nuggets you've learned from your mentors over the years?
It's interesting. I was thinking about that. And I guess for me, it's more I wouldn't necessarily say mentors, but people I've been really inspired by. As an example, Dr. Carol Probstfield. I mean, she was my board chair, but she also became a very good friend of mine. And I just was impressed with her poise and grace, and she was so smart and just carried herself so beautifully. And I was so impressed and inspired by also by her dedication to State College of Florida. That was just incredibly impressive. And, she's left a legacy here. And
Yes.
I don't think that was ever an intention of her, because she was all about what was good for the college. And so, I try to incorporate that. I'm always thinking about what is good for the EDC, like organization, the whole
Yeah.
team. It's not about any person on this team. It's about the organization and the work that we can do in the community. Dr. Karen Holbrook was another one of my chairs. And the first time I ever met her, we were sitting across the table from each other, and she was just the coolest lady and just had this incredible career. And, and she was still going after it. She
Yeah.
was still energized. She was still excited about what she was doing. And I thought, oh man, I want to capture that for myself and the work I'm doing, and never think that, oh, I don't have it anymore. Because
Yeah.
she always was up for it. She was always engaged and interested. My executive committee, my board, I'm always inspired by them. I have the best board of directors in the region. I'll say in the Tampa Bay region. They are awesome.
Is
They're just so engaged in everything that we do. They hang out after the board meetings and chat. They're not like running out the door. So I'm inspired by their engagement and their commitment. And so from that, anything that I become engaged with, if I have to really think it through before I decide to commit. But once I commit, I'm committed.
the EDC, the Bradenton EDC definitely has an amazing board. I don't know by name who they are right now at this second, but over the years, if you go to them, I'm sure they're on your website. It's a very good group to be connected with, your board, no doubt. So, all right, in your career, especially in the EDC, you're competitive, right? You're going for these things, and
Yep.
you're working with other groups as well. But there's also, when you're competing, there's going to be times you don't get the win, or you don't get that company, that job, that thing. How have you dealt with that in your career as a leader? How have you dealt with setbacks or things that might not have gone your way?
So whenever there's been a setback, and everybody has them, I look at it as an opportunity. So if there is a setback, it allows me to analyze what happened. And then oftentimes it provides me with a new way forward, a new way to address something, a new way. If it is a project that we lost, it's a new way to go after maybe a similar type of project. So I always look at a setback as a learning opportunity. And oftentimes it happened for a great reason, and it allowed me to pursue something in a much different way that ultimately achieved the success I was looking for.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, one last question. We're here early 2025. What can you tell us about what's to look forward to, what's coming up for the Bradenton Area EDC the rest of the year? Always big things happening, but give us some of the highlights.
Really looking forward to our work with the city of Bradenton. We've got that City Hall project that will be coming to fruition. We're moving City Hall. That's going to be a huge catalyst for the city of Bradenton. So excited to work with the leadership in the city to take Bradenton, the city of Bradenton, to the next level, and just being able to elevate the profile of the city and all the amazing assets that are there. Look for that in 2025. Also, around the airport, aviation is kind of our marquee sector,
Yeah.
and some really exciting things happening with what we're coining the aviation ecosystem. We've got all the pieces in place to develop this really robust and vibrant aviation ecosystem around SRQ. We've also got some interesting things going around Seaport Manatee.
Yeah.
So it's just, we're involved with our school district here. It's just a myriad of things. I've just hit the tip of the
Yeah.
iceberg. And even now, there'll be other things that happen that I'm not even aware of at this point, but that may come to fruition and will be a part of it.
Yeah, and you talk about the airport. Rick Piccolo, if you're listening, you're on my list. I have to get you on the From the Corner Office podcast before he's out the door. Not that people don't know what's going on at the airport, but I don't think you could give Rick enough credit for what's happened there and what he's been able, from a debt perspective and a rebuilding and like all of it, just amazing as you've seen it grow over the years. Amazing.
Yeah, and he is one of those other inspirations to me too.
Yeah.
I just appreciate the partnership that we have with Rick and his team, and he's just a great leader, and he's done amazing things with SRQ.
And just a nice guy. He's just so nice.
Super nice.
Right?
Super nice guy.
Guy to be around.
Super nice guy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Awesome. Well, you're super nice too, and thank you. Thank you for coming on the From the Corner Office podcast, Sharon.
Well, Mark, thanks. Can I do a plug for our economic forecast breakfast?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So we have our economic forecast breakfast on March 12th, 7:30 a.m. at the Bradenton Area Convention Center. And we have Dr. Sean Snape as our economist that will be giving his forecast for the 2025 year.
March 12th. And I'm sure for more information, Bradenton Area EDC website.
That is correct. I believe invitations are going out this week. So look for those in your emails of the ones that you've answered.
Excellent. Sharon Hillstrom, Bradenton Area EDC, thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Oh, Mark, it's been a pleasure. I always enjoy chatting with you.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordon. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.